Hey, look at that. It's my game, Frontier Gambit. Let's talk about how to play it. Well, first, maybe I should say the overview of the game is players are competing as 18th century hunters in a fantasy frontier. They have muskets, there's dark creatures that are trying to kill them. You get the idea. And the goal of the game is to secure 10 animal points first to win the game. To unpack the mint tin here, because there's a lot of little bits in there. I like to use the mint tin lid to kind of capture all the bits. Sometimes some get stuck on the side. You can pull out some cards and get the rest out. The first thing I like to find is the map cards. And for first time players, I prefer players use the backs or the fronts of the cards that have no skull symbol. Some cards have a skull symbol, which will alter the difficulty and kind of gameplay in different ways. So map cards with no skull symbols. The same goes for the hunting chances cards here. There's skull symbols on the back with them. I would say avoid that for your first time playing or introducing to new players. And you'll see there's the trees, icons on these hunting chances that align with what map or region they need to be aligned with. And they're double-sided, so if people are sitting across from you, they can read those easily. The last card to kind of lay out in the center is the player versus player combat card. It also has skull symbols, so place those face down and use the side with no skulls. Okay, here I already have the encounter cards shuffled and the animal cards out. So the encounter cards, you can see they're lined up with the appropriate region. The regions are called Oakbrook, Deercrest, and Witherwoods. So these decks should be shuffled. Then you'll want to sort the animal decks, making sure to put the circle point value up and not the diamond value. That's for after the points have been secured at town. You see there's the stoat, the beaver, the deer, the bear, the owlbear, and the elder deer. Last thing you want to set out is the item deck or item cards. They all have the kind of backpack symbol in the top right and a brown kind of heading. And next we want to set up the players. You can find the player tracker cards. They have the different colors in the corners. There's red, blue, green, and black. And for this example, I'm going to set up 2 players, which are the blue and red. From there, you get 1 dice for each player, place it in the dice area, and then according to the town card, you get that many resources when you start at town. In this case, it's 2 provisions, which are the orange blocks, 2 musket shots, which are the gray blocks, and then 2 green blocks, which are the healing herbs. Lastly, the player gets a transparent red cube, which is used as the health tracker, and place it at the 5 spot. And each player can have a guide card, which kind of just tells you what to do each turn. And on the back, it has some explanation for what to do if you die and what to do if you get cursed, and explanation of the icons in the game. All right, to start the game, all players place their colored meeple on the town card. And they can roll, and the highest roll will go first. In this example, blue is just going to go first. So the first step in a player's turn is to move. Now they can move 0, 1, or 2 regions, which are represented by those map cards. And you cannot stay in town. So on the first turn, you need to move 1 region to Oakbrook or 2 regions to Deercrest. In this case, the blue player is going to move 2 regions to Deercrest, and that spend 2 provisions to get there. After moving, the second step on a player's turn is to hunt, or they can skip hunting to fight a player. In this case, the blue player doesn't have anybody at the same region, so they can't fight them. They're going to roll the dice, and you can see here they get a 4. And I should note that players can use musket shots on their hunting rolls, and also later I'll show you can use them on your combat rolls. And there's 2 ways to use musket shots. You can simply spend it to add +1 to your rolled dice value, or you can throw it at the dice to try and change the rolled value, so like knock it over on a different side. And then you also still add a +1 to the rolled dice value on top of whatever the new value is. At the end of the video, I will provide some clarification on using musket shots. In this case, they stick with just the 4, and you see on the hunting chance cards that gives them a deer and 1 provision, which they collect and place by their player tracker card. The third step on a player's turn is the encounter, and that simply means drawing an encounter card from their region and resolving the effects on the other side. They can place the card in front of them and then, roll or whatever it calls to do. Here they have a simple roll to search an old wagon card. And blue player rolls a 2, so bummer. They don't get anything. Then the card can just be discarded and set aside. The fourth step on a player's turn is to take the map action, which is on the map card. We can see here that the blue player is at Deer Crest, and there's a trading outpost with 2 options. They can trade 1 animal point for 1 resource, excluding silver shots, or they can trade 2 animal points for an item of their choice from the item deck. And when you spend these animal points, that means you discard them from your selection and then just go in the discard pile, not back to the hunting piles. In this case, the blue player is going to skip this action. The 5th and final step for the player is to heal, and they do that by spending 1 green cube or healing herbs to heal 1 health point. Now, in this case, blue player has 5 health, so they're full health, so they're not going to spend any this turn. And that ends the turn for the blue player. So to summarize, a player can move, they can hunt animals, or they can fight other players if they're at their location. They must take an encounter card. They can take the map action, and they can heal their hunter. Okay, let's fast forward this game and talk about player versus creature combat. So combat can happen in encounters, and in this case, the blue player is in the Weathered Woods, and they encountered a werewolf. So they're going to grab the werewolf card, place it in front of them, take one of the extra transparent red health tracker cubes and place that on the werewolf's max health. And then they just begin rolling consecutively and resolving the results. You'll notice the werewolf card has the musket symbol, which normally means you can use your musket shots on the rolls during this combat encounter. But the werewolves are unique in that you can only use silver musket shots against them. So the player is unable to use their gray regular musket shots against them. Okay, let's talk about curses in Frontier Gambit. So the red player made it to the Witherwoods, and they are rolling to hunt. And you can see here they rolled a 5. And then they're going to spin one of their muskets, which adds +1 to the roll, so they get a 6, which if we check for the hunting chances in Witherwoods, that earns them an elder deer plus the bleeding eye symbol, which is the curse symbol. So the player will collect the elder deer card, and they will also collect an extra dice. As per curses, you get an extra dice. Now moving forward, this player will roll 2 dice, so all their dice they have on their player tracker card, and reference the lowest value when they roll and use that value. Okay, we fast forward a little bit more in this game, and you can see the blue player has moved into Oakbrook. They're going back to town to try and secure their animal points, and the red player is chasing after them, and the red player is actually going to attack the blue player in the Oakbrook region. To do this, you want to reference the player versus player combat card, and essentially the attacker will go first. They're going to roll their dice. They may use their musket shots, and then they tally their result and set it aside, and then the defender will do the same. And then the table there will determine the severity of the damage they do. They can deal damage, or they may even be able to steal a couple animal points from them. Now I'm going to move both players' trackers and such close to each other on the camera so y'all can see, but of course you don't have to do this when you're playing. And you'll notice the red player is cursed like before, and the red player rolls a 6 and a 3. So in this case, they have to use the 3, the lower value dice. I can still use musket shots on the lower value dice, so here's going to try and throw the musket right at the 3 dice here. And oh, actually made it worse. Now it turned into a 2. You still get the +1 from the spent musket shot, so that is a 3 total roll. Not great for player combat, being the first person to go there. Now the blue player is going to go, roll their dice. And you can't see it here. I gotta move it. And they rolled a 3. So you take the difference of the two rolls. 3 minus 3 is a 0, so nothing happens there. You can see there's step 4 on the player card. The loser of the fight is allowed to move one space or heal at normal costs. In this case, nobody's a loser, so nothing else happens there. Let's talk about returning to town. We'll see here the blue player is going to move back onto town. And for example, we'll show them with a little less health. See here, they spent 1 health to get back to town. And they're going to flip over all their animal cards to the diamond side, which kind of has this gold header. And that means these points are secured and they can no longer be taken away. You see they have 7 points total. You need 10 points to win. They also get all their supplies back, which are referenced on the town card. So 2 of each resource in this case. And they get full health. So you can see there they're back to 5 health. Now their turn is over, and on their next turn, they'll have to move back out of town. Let's talk about what happens when you die. In the game, of course. In this case, the blue player is cursed, and then they're going to fight a werewolf, which I don't recommend. Once you get down to 0 health, you're going to follow the 5 steps, which are on the back of the player guide cards. The first step is you're going to discard all your animal cards that are potential value with the circle side up. If you're killed by a player, you're going to give them half of your animal card value and then discard the rest. And then number 2 there, you're going to discard your companion cards, escort cards, and you get to discard your curse dice, which is a good thing. You also lose your items, and they go back to the item deck, not the discard pile. Number 4 there, you're going to move your meeple back to town. And then number 5, you're going to gain the town's resources and health, and then you end your turn, and you'll keep playing on your next turn. So basically, if you die, you respawn back at town. You lose most of your stuff, but you get to respawn back at town and try again. Okay, so there's items in the game, and they're generally pretty powerful. You can get them sometimes from the trading post or encounters in the game. In this case, the red player is going to roll to search an old fort, and they find the item. And you see the little backpack symbol means you gain an item. And the player actually gets to pick any of the items that are available in the item deck, and then they place that card in front of them. Then the player will get to decide when to use that item as it's described on the card. Items are 1 use, and once they're spent, they're returned back to the item deck. A player can have more than 1 item too. All right, let's talk about companions. I forgot to get footage of that, so I'll show you all a nice screenshot of game and play here. You can see some players have companions. The blue player has a wolfhound, and in the back there, the green player has a falcon. Companions can be found via encounter decks, and you get to keep that companion and place it near your player tracker card, and you get to continually receive the benefit from the card. The only way you lose a companion is on death. It will be lost. And you can only have 1 companion, so during an encounter, if you find a second companion, you get to pick between the 2, and then you take that companion card you don't want and place it face up on top of the current encounter deck for that region. That way another player can come by and pick them up if they'd like. Okay, the last thing to talk about is Escort Quests. Now, the Escort cards can be found in the encounter decks, and they're similar to companions. You'll take the card and place it near your hunter tracker. But the benefit is not received from the card unless you travel to the area specified on the card. So in this case, we see the Lost Scout, and he wants to get to the Witherwoods. So as soon as your player or your hunter enters the Witherwoods, you instantly gain the bonus from this card, and then it's discarded. In this case, you get 2 resources of any type, except Silvershot. All right, and that is it. That's the summary of Frontier Gambit. I also will make another video about some of the alternative game modes you can have. So you could play in teams of 2v2. You can play solo with these automata cards that you'll find in there. I didn't show those, but there's some cards that kind of guide you on how to play these automated players so you can compete against them. And I'll talk a little bit about the alternate difficulties there with the Monster Skull side card backs. But we'll leave that for another video. Thanks, y'all. I hope you get to play with your friends. Maybe play a few rounds. Best of 3, best of 5. I think that's how it's best played. The rounds are only about, 10 to 20 minutes max. Enjoy.